Hi guys, so I'm here in our barn where a lot of weddings have taken place and there's been a lot of emotion. So I thought it would be a good place to record the video for chapter 10, which is all about emotions and motivation. So let's start off with talking about what an emotion is. So an emotion is different than a feeling. A feeling is simply what's physically going on in our body. What sensations are we having? Emotions are more than that. Emotion is a psychological state with four components. So number one, you have a subjective experience, meaning that it's not objective, it's subjective. So it's not the same for everybody. So when you see someone get married, if you're the bride's mom, then you probably are sad and happy at the same time. If you're the bride's sister, maybe you're happy that she finally got married off. If you're somebody who hates the bride, maybe you're jealous. So one event can cause different emotions in different people. So it's subjective. You experience it the way you experience it. We also have activation of specific mental processes. So there's memories, there's neurotransmitters, there's the brain is working differently depending on how it's activated. Bodily arousal. Now, arousal, we often use this to mean sexual arousal, but arousal is any activation of the body. So the body's processes start up. So adrenaline rush, for instance, on a roller coaster is arousal. Sexual arousal is a specific type of bodily arousal. So you have different arousals depending on which emotion you're feeling. If you're feeling angry versus sad versus happy, it's going to be a very different body process. Then there is characteristic overt behavior, meaning that there are expected behaviors associated with every emotion. Crying with sadness, frowning with anger, big eyes with surprise, or running away with fear. So there's classic behaviors that you see with the various emotions. Happiness is probably the hardest emotion to study, but also the most interesting. People are very fascinated by this because, of course, we all want to be happy. So, what does make you happy? Now, be honest, do you believe that money will make you happy? Okay, probably. Most people do. I do, at least to some degree. You know, money buys horses and books and all the things that make me happy, so at the very least, it buys things that make me happy, right? But we've done a lot of research on this idea. Does money actually buy happiness? And what we found is yes and no. So if you are living in poverty and you get more money, then yes, you are going to be significantly happier, up to the poverty line. Now, once you get above poverty, money still continues to make you happy, not as dramatically, but it continues to crest until you get to middle class, so roughly $75,000 a year. It's a little bit different depending on where in the world you're living, but whatever that geographical area's version of middle class is, that's where your happiness peaks. Once you hit middle class and start uh, going down the other way, making more money, getting rich, your happiness goes down. So your happiness peaks at middle class and starts decreasing after that. And because what a lot of people don't realize is that the more money you make, the more responsibility you have, the more bills you have. As my mom says, the more people are lined up to take it. So a lot of problems come about once you're making more money. Take the curse of the lottery, for instance. A lot of people commit suicide once they win the lottery because they believe this money is going to make them happy, but all it does is create more problems for them, and then reveal the fact that your problems weren't about money in the first place. So we see something called the hedonic treadmill. So hedonism is a philosophy where you believe that pursuing pleasure will bring happiness in life. So the hedonic treadmill is that you're pursuing happiness in the form of money, but you don't get anywhere. You're running and running, and no matter how hard you run, you aren't any happier. Now, you may be saying, well, every time I get a pay raise, I'm really happy. And that's true, but it's a temporary happiness. So there's a little blip in happiness, and it goes back down to the same level in a few weeks or a few months. Think about if you've ever bought a new car. I have. It was awesome. I loved having a new car. You got that new car smell, and your friends think it's great, and everybody wants to drive in it. And then a few months later, or even in a few years later for sure, it's dusty and scratched up, and somebody's hit it, and the desert sun is peeling the paint off, and you're still paying the car payments like it's brand new. And it's not so fun anymore, okay? It doesn't bring you the same level of happiness that it used to. As a matter of fact, you might be less happy because now you're not that happy with the car and you're paying those car payments. Another thing that brings happiness or takes away happiness is social comparison. So if you compare yourself to those around you and you feel like, I'm doing pretty good, then that boosts your happiness. If you compare yourself to those around you and you think, wow, my life sucks, look at all these people, that will decrease happiness. It'll create depression. And so we see that a lot with social media because everybody posts the good stuff. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. There's the occasional person that's posting all the crap in their life, but most of us think that's oversharing. That's not appropriate. So everybody's posting all of these wonderful things, and they don't share the fact that they're dealing with depression or that they can't pay their bills or, whatever. For instance, I've got this barn and I've got this wedding business, and people are always like, that's so amazing, you're so lucky, but it's a freaking hard business to run, and I've sacrificed money and time and, all sorts of stuff in order to have this business, and there's a downside to it. I'm happy, don't get me wrong, I'm happy I have it, but there's many a times when I think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I could be out having fun somewhere instead of working my butt off. All right, so there's a downside to everything, but on social media, we don't see it. We only get to see the happy stuff and the cool stuff, and so we often compare ourselves to an unrealistic version of other people's lives, and of course that's going to make us less happy. Now, when we are happy, we become more resilient, so we can recover from stress easier. We can even physically recover. It boosts the immune system, and so we're less likely to get sick. We're less likely to get cancer, and if we do get something, we're more likely to recover. So people who go through a major surgery, they recover faster, and they're less likely to die if they are happy. And one of the best predictors of happiness is your social relationships. Do you have friends? Do you spend time with people? Do you interact with people just on a casual basis? Do you say hi to the lady at Starbucks that's handing you your coffee? That actually boosts happiness. And more than just having friends, what is the diversity of your friendship? If you're a Republican, do you have Democrat friends and vice versa? Okay, and we're getting so polarized in this country that a lot of the times that doesn't happen. If you're Muslim, do you have a Christian friend? Or if you're Christian, do you have a Muslim friend, and vice versa? Well, I guess that is vice versa. But anyhow, so do you have this diversity of friendships? Do you have people that challenge you, that question you, that can sometimes annoy you because they believe different than you? That actually increases happiness, boosts resilience, increases your lifespan. So take a look at these faces. I bet you can name all of these emotions really easy. A smiling face is happy, lips down, sad, big white eyes and high eyebrows, fear, anger, surprise, disgust. These are all easy to recognize. And when you see them on anybody, you know exactly what they're feeling. We call these the basic emotions. So a basic emotion is an emotion that is expressed the same everywhere in the world. It's not culturally based. You aren't socialized to learn that if you're happy, you smile. It's built into you biologically. So it's universal. They're called a basic emotion, but they're seen universal in every culture. And we've done experiments. So back in like the 70s, for instance, there were researchers who went to Papua New Guinea, which is an island in the Pacific Island area. Let's see. Like a jungle, foresty area. There's towns and everything too, but especially back in the 70s, it was very rural. And some of these people were tribal out in the jungles. They still live out in the jungles, and the Fore tribe being one of them. And they'd never seen white people. So they sent people out there to investigate if they could recognize facial expressions. And it's important that they'd never seen white people yet, because if you've seen people of different cultures, then you might have been socialized or trained in order to recognize how they were feeling. So these people had never seen them, and they were shown pictures of their of white people's facial expressions to see if they would be able to get it right. And not surprising to all of us, right? They did get it right. Now, that is amazing to know that some of these emotions are totally genetically built in. And this was especially in a time like with behaviorism being big, where we believed that everything was environmentally based. So this right here, you see, is a chart of the different emotions. So they got happiness right 95% of the time. Anger was a little bit below that. Disgust, fear, sadness, surprise. And then telling the difference between fear and surprise was a little bit more difficult for them. And often that's because when we're surprised, we're also afraid. You know, oh, I'm surprised that this panther is jumping out of the jungle to kill me. Okay, so those two emotions often get interchanged. So there are different theories of why we experience emotions. The James Lange theory is one of the first ones, and it said that you feel the emotions after your body reacts. So you have an event, you see a bear. Your body has a physiological arousal, so it starts pumping out adrenaline, or let me specify, the more proper term is epinephrine. We use adrenaline in Europe, epinephrine in America. So it starts pumping out the epinephrine, you get that whole roller coaster feeling, you know, your muscles are tense and ready to go. And then your body goes, or your mind says, my body's acting like this, so if my body feels this way, I must feel fear, and then makes you feel fear, okay? And this is true, it does happen. There are times when your body reacts and your brain is trying to figure it out. Remember that your brain is just sort of stuck in this box. It can't see or experience the world. It only gets information like emails sent to it from the fingers or the eyes or the ears. This is what we're experiencing. And the brain then has to figure out, okay, if this is the information coming in, what does that mean? And so that's why you have things like that dress that broke the internet. And that's why you have things like, you know, this dress here. Is it blue and black or white and gold? Let me find the classic picture. Right? Okay, is it blue and black or is it black and gold? Who knows? Okay, now this is the actual dress right here. It is actually a blue and black dress, which is crazy. But we see it, most of us are seeing it as white and gold, even though that's literally blue and black. Okay? Crazy or what? So why is it that some of us see it as white and gold when it really is blue and black? Because the brain is trying to interpret the information. And so it looks at this dress. Let me find a good picture of it. This one, I guess. It looks at this dress and says, we're only seeing it dark because it's in shade. So the shade is making it look blue and black when it's actually white and gold. Okay? So the brain is sending you the color information and making you see it how it should be seen according to the brain. But the brain has been tricked from the shade. Because if it was a white and black or white and gold dress and you saw it in the shade, it would appear slightly blue and black. Okay? So the brain is just, working on the best information that it has in order to send you consciously the correct information. Okay, so if you look at this picture right here, if you're looking at white and gold in the sun and then white and gold in the dark, it looks, this is blue and this is black. Okay, so a white and gold dress would look blue and black in the dark. So therefore, the brain is saying that's just the shade that's giving it the blue and black tint, but it's actually a white and gold dress. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay? So you can trick the brain into perceiving things that aren't real. Okay? This is, mind games, illusions, and so on. That's how it works. You give the brain information that doesn't match reality, and then the brain doesn't know what to make of it, and you get this weird mind-bending sort of thing happening. Same thing can happen with emotions. If you feel a certain way in your body, the brain has to go, okay, why do we feel this way? And my best guess is this emotion. If that still is confusing, just wait. We'll talk about it more in a future slide. All right, so this is the Cannon-Bard theory. I don't know why that just has a C there, sorry. This is the Cannon-Bard theory, which says that the event causes, see, I'll write this, maybe, hello. Event causes both arousal and emotion. So the bear walks in, the bear causes your body to react, but the bear itself is also causing fear. And we know that that is the case sometimes. For instance, if a truck was barreling down the parking lot towards you at full speed, you are going to react immediately with fear to that. It's not going to take any sort of brain processes to cause fear. It's an immediate reaction. So we usually see the Cannon-Bard theory happening with a fearful event. Then we have the cognitive theory, which is the arousal and the context combined to form the emotions. So the event happens, your body reacts, but then your brain thinks. This is why it's called cognitive. Your brain has cognitions or thinks through, what exactly is this situation? So for instance, if you, something that happened to me, I had a tiger try to eat me. So the tiger pounced at me, inches away, tried to kill me, and what was my reaction? Terror? No, I was laughing. Okay, oh, it was a little scary, but I was laughing. Now, why would I laugh when a tiger's trying to kill me? Because there was a really thick thing of glass in between me and the tiger at the San Diego Wild Animal Park. So you hear people laughing, but it's not really funny except for the context. So the fact that that window is there is literally an inch of glass is the difference between tragedy and a funny YouTube video. Okay, so that is the cognitive theory. The event causes physiological arousal, which then your brain interprets based on the context and forms an emotion. Now you would think, well, isn't that how all emotions are formed? But the truth is that the brain doesn't always have time to interpret the context, which is why the brain can sometimes get things wrong. So how many times has, a moving object comes towards you, your kid has thrown a ball, or somebody's pulled out of the parking lot really fast and is moving towards you, and you jump and startle before you realize that you're not even in danger. So there are times when you see something like the Cannon-Bard or the James Lange theory happening, where your body is not, you're not feeling emotions based on a logical conclusion. Okay? So you don't see logic happen until this cognitive theory. The last theory of emotion is emerging, well, it's not the last theory, but this is the big theory that most of the time we say this is where emotion comes from. The other theories are more like unusual circumstances. Not that it's rare that it happens, but it's less common. So emerging synthesis synthesizes all these theories. So it says there's an event, but then there's different brain reactions, there's different body reactions, you have various memories and interpretations where you think of and perceive this event differently, and these all combine to form the emotion. So different emotions rely on different combinations of body, brain, memory, and interpretation. Okay? So that's the emerging synthesis. And again, the other theories aren't wrong. But they explain only certain events, certain times we feel certain ways. And same with emerging synthesis. Even though it sounds like it should be right, and most things in psychology, when it's like, is it nature or nurture? Well, it's both. But that's not necessarily the case with the theories of emotions. There are times when each of these different theories result in you feeling an emotion. So let's talk about one of the famous experiments, the Schachter-Singer experiment. In this experiment, took college students, of course, because you guys are always hard up for money or extra credit. I've been there. And these participants were told they were receiving a vitamin shot, but what they actually received was epinephrine, or what we more commonly call adrenaline. So they were shot up with epinephrine, which gives you that roller coaster feeling. So how was this person going to feel? Tense, just energized. They've got this restless energy, and they don't know why it's there. It's very weird. Your muscles feel tense and shaky, and imagine if you just got off a scary roller coaster. So then they put them in a waiting room. And remember, supposedly, this research experiment was about a vitamin supplement. So they were told, go sit in the waiting room. We're going to wait 20 minutes, and then we're going to test your eyesight to see if the vitamin helps. Now, in the waiting room was what we call a confederate. A confederate is someone, not part of the South. In science, a confederate is somebody who's part of the experiment, but is pretending that they're another participant in the experiment. So this confederate, he had the job of sitting there with the person who'd been shot up with the epinephrine and either acting really funny or really grumpy. And what they wanted to see was, did this change the participant's mood? And what we found was, yes, it did, significantly. So if the person was in with the happy-go-lucky guy, he became happier. If he was in with the grumpy guy, he was in a worse mood. Okay, you'd expect that. But the interesting thing is, if he wasn't shot up with epinephrine, then the mood did not change, not significantly. So what's happening where the mood changed with the epinephrine but didn't change without it? So if you think of yourself, if you go in and you sit in a room and there's a guy that's funny, he might be amusing, entertaining, or whatever, or there's this jerk over there being, a total grump, and he might be a little bit annoying, but it's not really going to change your mood all that significantly, which of course is what the research found. But now your body is tense and energetic, and your muscles are shaking, and you're sweaty and hot, and you have no idea what's going on. Your brain is trying to interpret, why is my body feeling this way? And then here's a guy being really funny. Well, it must be because this guy is hilarious and he's really putting you in a good mood. So then your body says, okay, we're feeling happy. That's what's going on. And so it releases endorphins and serotonin, all these happy chemicals, because it thinks that's what your mood is. And it's trying to make sure to do happy. Or on the other side with the grumpy guy, to do sad. So it stops the production of serotonin and so on. So your brain is misinterpreting why your body's feeling what it's feeling. We call this misattribution of arousal. So an attribute is what is responsible for this. So your brain attributes it to the wrong thing. And we know that this is the case because when we shot people up with epinephrine, not we, I didn't do it, but when Schachter and Singer shot people up with epinephrine, and they told the person, this is what we're shooting you up with, and this is how it's going to make you feel, and then the person sat in the room with the confederate, their mood didn't change either. Because the brain knew why their body was feeling the way their body was feeling. And so it was able to attribute that to the correct thing. Okay, so I'm going to show you this video of misattribution of arousal in action.
A high-suspension bridge on a windy day is just the place to put Art Aaron's theory to the test, that danger can provoke passion.
We had an attractive young woman stand on this scary bridge, and every time a young man would walk across by himself, she would stop him and say, "Excuse me."
I'm doing an experiment for my psychology class on the effects of exposure to scenic attractions on creative expression. Would you mind filling out this questionnaire for me, please? Here's a pen.
Almost all the men agreed to do it. After all, it was an attractive woman asking a man to do something. They didn't want to admit they were scared.
And then I have a picture for you to look at. And I'd like for you to write a brief dramatic story based on this photograph.
Okay. So the man would write the story, and when he was done, she'd say,
"Thank you, I appreciate your time." And I would love, I don't have a whole lot of time now, but I'd love to explain the experiment in more detail when I do have more time. So I'm going to give you my number. And then you can feel free to call me. It's at my hotel.
Okay.
So she would write her name and phone number on the edge of her little sheet, tear it off, and hand it to her.
Great.
Well, my name's Linda, so
Okay.
I hope you call me.
Okay, Linda. Thanks.
Thanks.
She stopped 20 men on the Scary Bridge, and then she stopped another 20 men on another bridge that was a big, heavy, safe bridge, not very scary at all.
I'm doing a project for my psychology class on the effects of exposure to scenic
Of the
attractions.
men who met her on the Scary Bridge,
Please fill out the
many more phoned her that night than the ones who met her on the safe bridge. The other thing we did is we looked at the stories they wrote. Far more romantic and sexual content when they met the woman on the Scary Bridge
She's embarrassed because her boyfriend wants to marry her.
than when they met the very same woman on the safe bridge.
I think this woman is a little embarrassed about something that's really not that important at all.
Erin believes that when our heart is pounding in our chest, we unconsciously look for the most attractive explanation. And if an attractive person of the right sex is standing by, then we're happy to assume we've fallen in love.
So in this video, you could see misattribution of arousal in action. So the brain senses the body is, feeling something, and it's trying to figure out why is it feeling this way. Well, it must be because this is a pretty girl and you're attracted to her. So we've done other experiments too. We know that if you take your girlfriend to a scary movie and she gets all the adrenaline pumping because she's afraid, the brain is more likely to say, oh, it's because you like this guy that you're with. Or another experiment was done. If you take somebody to Starbucks and you say, hey, I'm going to go get you a decaf coffee, and you give it to them, but it's actually caffeinated, that creates a release of adrenaline or epinephrine, and your body doesn't know why you're feeling this rush, even if it's just little and small, it can be very subtle. The brain goes, well, it must be because you're a little bit attracted to this guy or girl. So that's not dating advice, but you can keep that in mind. So what of the theories does this match with? Okay, give you a second to think about that. All right, so remember you have an event, your body is feeling something, and then your brain says, oh, okay, you must be feeling this emotion then. That matches with the James Lange theory. Your body reacts, you interpret the bodily reaction, therefore I must be feeling this emotion. So it's during the James Lange theory that the brain can get tricked, most of the time is right, but it can get tricked into giving you the wrong emotion. This, by the way, also explains Stockholm Syndrome. So, this is when you fall in love with your hostage taker. Somebody's kidnapped you, abuses you really bad, and somehow you fall in love with them. It happens. Weird, but it does happen. But it's because of this James Lange theory. My body is feeling this rush of epinephrine. I mean, you've got fight or flight going like crazy because you're so stressed out. You're under so much abuse and strain. And it's much nicer to feel like I'm feeling this way because I'm in love with somebody. Which is kind of a weird thing to say about love, right? Love feels like being abused by a hostage taker. But it's that rush of adrenaline. That happens whether you're on a roller coaster, you're being attacked, or you're in love with somebody. So this might be sort of like a psychological survival mechanism where if I can just feel good about this stressful situation, then I can survive it. It might be a trick the brain uses to make people survive.